Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for Early Education Day at the Capitol. My name is Dr. Toya Barnes-Teamer, and I'm the chair of Women United of United Way of Southeast Louisiana. For over 15 years, United Way of Southeast Louisiana has led the charge with partners on key public policy initiatives, including securing historic investments in early care and education and the development of Louisiana's Child Care Center rating system. We are committed to addressing systemic issues that fuel disparities in health, education, and financial stability. As an engagement group of the United Way of Southeast Louisiana, our Women United, like many others across the state, supports the unique health and human service needs of women and children. We are passionate about advocacy and believe public policy can help stabilize and create opportunity for the 51% of households in Louisiana who can't afford the basics. This includes families living in poverty and ALICE, households who are asset limited, income constrained, employed. Today we are here as a member of the Ready Louisiana Coalition to highlight the importance of high quality early care and education for young children in our state. Formed in 2018, the Ready Louisiana Coalition is a bipartisan statewide coalition of over 100 businesses, chambers of commerce, advocacy organizations, and early care and education professionals seeking sufficient investment in quality, affordable early care and education in Louisiana. The pandemic made clear just how essential early care and education is. Parents with young children cannot work without a safe, reliable, and affordable place to send their children. Our economy relies on child care. Despite new revenues being recognized, the state budget does not include any new money for early care and education. We're asking legislators to commit all revenues from sports betting to the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund to match current investments from local governments in early care and education and incentivize more communities to step up. The Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund provides a dollar-for-dollar match for local investments in early care and education. The fund was created in 2017 but was not funded at that time. Subsequent revenue streams created by the legislator have not resulted in a meaningful amount of money to date. The state is poised to leave local communities without a match if additional dollars are not allocated to fund in 2021. At this time, it is my honor to introduce today's MC, Denise Durel. Denise is president and CEO of United Way of Southwest Louisiana. Thank you, Denise, for leading today's program.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to everyone here who's able to join us at the Capitol. United Way of Southwest Louisiana is committed to ensuring that more young children and family in our region have access to quality early care and education, and we are very grateful to be a part of this event today. I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors of the Early Education Day 2021, who, without today's support, would not be possible. The Louisiana Policy Institute for Children, Capital Area United Way, United Way of Southeast Louisiana, the Women United of United Way of Southeast Louisiana, Louisiana Association of United Ways, United Way of Southwest Louisiana, the Jefferson Chamber, Save the Children Action Network, and Resource Consulting. We are very honored to open today's program with remarks from the Louisiana State Superintendent of Education, Dr. Cade Brumley. Dr. Brumley, thank you for being here today and for your support of early care and education.
Hey, thank you all for having me. See some friendly faces in the room. Let me just start out by telling a story that I don't think has been told enough over the course of the year. I tell it, but you need to be telling this story as well. At the height of the pandemic, only about 27% of early care facilities across the state were open in operation. Now, we know that is a strain on parents. We know that's a strain on our economy. We know that's a collective strain when those early care centers are not open for our kids ages birth to 4. Throughout the course of the pandemic, early care center providers worked diligently and on very small margins to do their part in this global health pandemic. As of today, and this is the important part that you need to know, as of today, 99% of early care facilities across the state of Louisiana are open, and they deserve a round of applause from all of us. Now my line is consistent. The greatest educational challenge we face as a nation is early childhood education. In the state of Louisiana, we know that only 40% of our students on day one come to us with the necessary skills that they need to be successful in kindergarten. 40% as an average. We know that in some of our most impoverished communities, that number is around 90% of kids who are coming to kindergarten on day one not prepared with the basic skills that they need to be successful. And we have to do better. We have to do better in terms of making sure that we have a seat for every child who wants one in terms of quantity, but we also have to make sure that those seats are of quality. And we will continue to work on both of those things over the next few years. Unfortunately, as was mentioned, early childhood funding was not a priority in this particular budget. And there's a role for us all to play in making sure that that conversation is elevated and that our state does indeed invest in early childhood education as we move forward, and rightfully so, specifically when we look at the numbers of only about 40% of our kids on day one are ready in kindergarten. We know that by the end of 3rd grade, only about 46% of our kids are on mastery level in English language arts. And we have to do better, and we will do better, and I commit alongside you to doing better. One of the ways that I think that we solve the early childhood education dilemma in our state is by a shared contribution through the state and our local communities. We believe that our local communities can drive this improvement for the needs within their own local context. You know, I look across the room and I see leaders from New Orleans, from Jefferson, from Shreveport. These are leaders who have worked alongside business community in their region, alongside school officials, politicians, philanthropy, and they have been able to cultivate an interest in early childhood education, but they've also been able to cultivate a purse of funds to support that work. The state of Louisiana's incentive fund is especially important to be able to match those local dollars. And through a combined effort with state funding and local funding, we really think we can drive early childhood education in our state as it needs to be driven. You know, this is going to take everyone's work. It's going to take, as I said, politicians, legislators, business community leaders, school leaders, families, everyone across the board working together. And I think over the last decade at least, the conversation has shifted. And people are beginning to really appreciate the need for early childhood education, and it has a synergy that hasn't existed before. Unfortunately, we're still seeing that lack of committed investment in that state budget that we all hope to see. Now, we are going to do our part as an agency to help build a bridge to the future. We're going to do our part through some of the federal funding that we have available, through investing in infrastructure to build out early childhood education. We're going to work across the state looking at places who want to work alongside us to not only improve quality, but improve quantity seats. And without going into a ton of details, that is my commitment to you today. We're going to work to build that bridge. But unfortunately, in a few years, we're going to fall off that bridge unless all of us together within our state work to make sure that we have that investment in ECE that will allow local communities to match that level of state funding. And so it's really an honor for me to be here with you today at Early Childhood Education Day, just because I consistently say this is the greatest educational challenge that we face. And if I can help convince you of that anyway, just please call on me or call on our office, and I'll be happy to have this conversation with you as many times as we need to have it, because this is truly important for our state and for our community. And until we address this issue, I do not think we're going to have the transformation that we want to see in our local communities, in our region, and in our state as a whole. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to me with you today. I will share, I am the early card on the ballot. Everyone is here to see the governor today, I believe. And we do have a hard-working governor. Over the course of the last year, and I'm not sure if it's been the longest or shortest year of my life in COVID time, but I've had the opportunity over the last year to see our governor work. And one of the things I can share with you is that he is a governor that does not stop working. Whether it's Saturday or Sunday or every day of the week, this is a man that continues to work for the state. I can also share that he is a proponent of early childhood education. There's hardly a time in a conversation that I've had with him that he hasn't asked me about early childhood education or asked me about plans for funding or asked me about how we'll build this bridge together. So you are all in for a treat as the governor will provide remarks to you today. So at this time, I'll introduce the governor of the great state of Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards.
Thank you, Dr. Brumley. And he is marking, and he alluded to it, I don't know if he came right out and said it, 1 year on the job as state superintendent. And I can tell you it's been a very difficult year for everybody in their jobs regardless. But if you're the new superintendent of education for a state and you come in during COVID, when one of the biggest challenges is trying to figure out how to continue to deliver education in a safe way, as all of that unfolded, I will tell you he did a wonderful job, and we met a number of times and talked about all of the things related to education, and especially how do you continue to deliver it when kids are not in school, meaning remote learning, distance learning, and then how do you safely get them back in school. Now, he told you about the fact that 99% of our early learning centers are open today. We were tracking that every single day through the course of the pandemic, knowing that it was important that they be open as much as possible, that they needed support, they needed to know how to do that safely, because parents couldn't go to work if they couldn't have their kids taken care of. And so it was important for a lot of different reasons. And another thing that I will tell you, and this is not directly related to early childhood education, in Louisiana, if you were like me and the conversation that was happening in Congress just until recently was all about opening our schools. Our schools have been open since August of last year. And we did it by bringing all the stakeholders together in this room. And we did this last summer. And we said, what do you need to feel safe in going back to school? And we were talking to principals, and we were talking to the teachers groups, and we were talking to superintendents, and you name it. And we figured all that out. School resumed, and we've had most of our kids going to in-person instruction since then, and it has been very, very successful. And I will tell you, not that there weren't cases of COVID among teachers and students, but the fact of the matter is very little of that happened at school because they were doing things that the CDC were recommending. Now, I don't know what happened after the bell rang and people went home and so forth. But that's another success story in Louisiana. And I want to thank Cade for his work because I just have to confess, we made a lot of hard decisions, and some of them maybe we didn't get right. But when he and I met at the end of July, early August, and it's time that we have to pull the trigger about are we going to have in-person education on day one for those schools who want to do it. There was a lot of conflicting information out there. But we sat down and we talked it through and said, yeah, we think it's right for the state of Louisiana, and our kids have been extraordinarily well served by that. And it would not have been possible without principals and teachers who did that. And so I want to thank Cade. It's good to be with all of you this morning to talk about, or I'm sorry, this afternoon, to talk about early childhood education. We all know it's important. That's why we're in this room. And I know that if you're like me, there's a lot of things that weren't front and center in your lives the way that you would want them to be over the last year. We are coming out of COVID now. I think we can focus a little bit better on what the challenges are and how we respond to those challenges. Even in the last several months, we've come a long way. I remember another meeting with Cade. We're preparing the executive budget that we're going to have to submit in January to the legislature. And at that point in time, we had the most people in the hospital that we've ever had. We had the most people dying. It was not clear at all what was going to happen with the American Rescue Plan because the Biden administration wasn't even in office. And so as recently as January, when we were doing that, I mean, we really didn't know. I remember saying, you know, I don't know, Cade, whether we're going to be able to do any increase in the MFP. If so, will it only go to teacher pay? And how much is that amount and all that sort of stuff? And then you flash forward to today, and quite frankly, money isn't the problem. It isn't. And we're doing extraordinarily well. The REC forecast upon which my executive budget was based, we thought it was adopted, it was the lower of the two, and which is fine with me that you take the lower of the two, but the lower of the two was much, much lower than the other one. And then since then, I think the number was $357 million more for next year, and so which is good news. But the challenge was that we, looking at the infrastructure and trying to match the incentive program to fill as many seats as we could, both from a qualitative and a quantitative perspective, is how much can we digest in 1 year based on where we are with the waiting list, the infrastructure that we have in place, how much can we responsibly spend? And quite honestly, I'm very disappointed because we asked the legislature for $6 million more in state general fund investment in early childhood education, and they had $357 million more that they could have drawn from, and it didn't happen. Now, that is not to say that there aren't additional funding opportunities in instruments that the legislature is advancing, because there are. It's in a statutory dedication with respect to sports betting, right? And I feel like that's going to happen, and there will be some additional funding. But quite frankly, we have to do better on the general fund side, and we need to be putting annual new investments, as we are able to do it, that are digestible within the system, so that you're not putting more money than you can responsibly spend, but you certainly aren't putting less. And so we have some work to do. And it's all the more unfortunate because $17 million of state general fund weren't even included in the budget. I think they were in such a hurry to put it on my desk that they lost track of the funding that was there. So we all have to do better, and I will continue to work with the legislature to make that happen. In the meantime, I have complete confidence that the superintendent, working with the federal funds, the excess federal funds he has, will do an awful lot of good work in Louisiana around early childhood education. And then that will allow us, he talked about a bridge. I think we're going to be okay this year, but we got to make sure that we're back on track next year. As you all know, and they gave me all the talking points that you all know, that's why you're in the room, about how important early childhood education is and how the brain develops and how you got to do so many things before child turns 4 and all of that sort of thing. And by the way, they've reduced it, economists and experts have reduced this to a return on investment in early childhood that sometimes I think is a way to get through to people. But the programs really do more than pay for themselves if you just invest in them and get the quality out there that you need and the quantity of seats funded as possible. We don't want kids entering kindergarten behind. And that's the real challenge because it is very hard to catch them up. There's a dirty little secret about education in Louisiana, and that is our schools, our teachers do as good a job as anybody in the country in educating kids who show up ready to learn. We have way more than our fair share of kids who show up and they're not ready to learn. We don't do a very good job of catching them up. The truth is, no state does a very good job of that. None. We just have way more than our fair share. And so to make the kind of improvements that we need to make in Louisiana, it really does start on the front end, making sure that by kindergarten, these kids show up, they're ready to learn, and they have the basic skills and knowledge that they need, which quite frankly, they're not, in too many cases at least, not getting outside of early childhood education. Now, speaking of kindergarten, I am happy that we have a bill out there that is going to make kindergarten mandatory, because most people think of K through 12 education and assume that every kid out there is getting kindergarten, and most do. There are a few thousand each year who don't. And of course, you can be satisfied with public school, private school, parochial school, homeschool. But making sure that more kids are in kindergarten, I think, is important, because if we know where we're at with the 4-year-olds, and then going back and putting the belts and suspenders on the 5-year-olds, then we finish up with the 4-year-olds and start getting to the 3s and going down. I mean, that's just critically important, which is why we also have to have those additional investments every year. So I am here before you. I'm actually optimistic about the future as it relates to early childhood education. Somewhat disappointed this year because we did ask for a what I thought was a very reasonable and modest amount, but we will redouble our efforts, and I know that you all will too, to make sure that we are better poised next year for success on the general fund side. Before I leave you, I do want to say that we're obviously doing better COVID, otherwise we wouldn't be in this room today in these numbers without masks on and so forth, but we're still in the pandemic. Sometimes you see the state of Louisiana ranked in different things, and quite often we're not where we want to be. Well, right now, with respect to vaccinations, that is, again, the case. We have the second fewest people vaccinated in the country. The state with the fewest is Mississippi. It doesn't make sense. We have over 1,500 locations today where people can be vaccinated. And it's easy to find one of those places, and you can go to the LDH website. You can do it by going to vaccines.gov. You enter your zip code, it tells you where you can be vaccinated. If you have questions because you're unsure about the safety or efficacy of the vaccines, or you've heard something and you just want a question from a medical expert, well, go see your doctor. If you don't have that relationship, you can actually call and get connected with healthcare professionals. But also, while you're on the phone, you can schedule an appointment. If you're homebound or you know someone's homebound and they want access to a vaccine, we will bring that out to their homes. And those can be scheduled by calling 855-453-0774. That's also where you get answers to whatever questions that you might have. So we still have some work to do, and it would be great if we could greatly increase the vaccination rates, because we can go down now as young as age 12, right, before school starts again in August. And I just think if we were able to have, especially in contrast to so many other states around the country, a relatively normal school year, but the degree to which we have full normalcy would be determined by things like vaccinations. And so hopefully we can all promote that together. Look, I want to thank Dr. Barnes-Teamer, Denise, all of you all for being here today. And I'm going to excuse myself now so that I can go meet with some legislators. We are trying to wrap up this session, I think, 8 days from now, by 6 p.m. And I think I'm going to be followed by Stephen Waguesback of LABI, and he'll know exactly what I'm about to say. My life gets a lot easier and better come 6 p.m. next Thursday. You remember those days, don't you? Yeah. But and by the way, I think the fact that Stephen and I are both here speaking in support of early childhood education and for more investments and more consistent investments, I think it speaks volumes too. as to the range of folks out there, regardless of ideology and so forth, who support early childhood education. And I think that's a testament to what Dr. Brumley was saying, is that unlike years ago, I really believe people genuinely get the importance of this. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm optimistic about the future. And I will, knowing that unless something very strange happens, we're going to have another year next year with considerable funding available to us. I will just come right out and tell you, this isn't happening again next year. It just isn't going to happen. We will be successful in getting a general fund increase in early childhood education, but it won't be $6 million, and it'll be more than that because we got to catch up, right? We'll do that. So, Richard, make sure you write that down. Look, thank y'all very much, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Governor Edwards, for your longstanding commitment to early care and education. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce the President and CEO of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, Stephen Waguesback, to speak on the importance of early care and education to Louisiana's economy. Stephen?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction and the invitation to be here today. I think Governor Edwards made several comments which were spot on. And the main one was, in an era of angst and conflict and differences and everyone in their different bunkers and all that stuff, if there's any issue that knows a way to just shoot the gap and be the exception to the rule, it's probably early education. This is not a Republican-Democrat issue. It's not a North or South issue. It's not a rural or urban issue. This impacts every family, every student, every individual in Louisiana. And the question is, why? Why is it the exception to the rule? Why is it so unique? Why is it not a partisan issue when everything else seems to me? Is it these fancy cookies, look like baseballs that you give out? Or is it this fantastic document that Libby put together? The answer is no. The answer is it's the merit. In an era where it's hard to know where the truth is and everything, the merit is crystal clear on this issue. And there's a lot of different ways to look at merit. You know, from a business perspective, you know, we have employers who are worried about productivity. They're worried about, can their parents, their employees who are parents come into work and be productive citizens. And many times there are missed days and all because, you know, look, I got 3 kids. Children's a lot of time, they're complicated. The schedules are unpredictable. Early education helps with that. There's a study by Dr. Stephen Barnes from the UL Blanco Policy Center, and he's fantastic on a number of fronts. And paternal absences cost Louisiana businesses over $760 million a year. A stable early education system can help offset some of that. But I want to be crystal clear. That is not where the merit lies on early education. That is a side benefit, if anything else. In our members' mind, that the true benefit is the preparation part that the governor also spoke with. I saw Representative White here earlier. She just left, but she's an artist, and she does a lot of sculpting. And when you do all this sculpting, you put hours and hours of work in, but you start with a lump of clay. And that lump of clay has to have the right mix of moisture and ability and all that stuff. But if you start with a dry, rotted, cracked piece of clay, you can work on it all day long. It's not going to happen. And too often today, we're not putting kids into our system with the skills and the preparation they deserve and they need to go in and flourish in these great programs we've created. In the days since Hurricane Katrina, but even before that, you can go all the way back to Governor Foster and Cecil Picard. You can go back to Governor Blanco and all the way through now up into Superintendent Brumley and Governor Edwards today. Louisiana has been almost on a 25 to 30-year march to improve our educational process. And they put accountability in. They put parental choice in. They put new methods in. We've brought different solutions to families left over and over and over. But the missing gap is that lump of clay. The missing gap is we're not doing what we need to do to prepare those kids so they can go in and flourish in whatever different path they choose on that front. We've done the hard work to provide the options. Now it's just that last piece to get them ready to start with all the capacity they can. You know, I did a podcast with Superintendent Brumley recently. I want to thank him for coming in and doing that. We talked about a host of things, and on this, he made a point. Only 40% of Louisiana kindergartners show up on day one of school with the skills they need. And if you're in a high level of poverty area, that number is 90%. So if you live in a high poverty area in Louisiana, there's a 90% chance that that kid showing up on the day one of school is unprepared to accept all the great opportunities that have, to accept the choices that they're given to make something out of their lives. So that's another piece of the merit for this. The last piece of the merit that's obvious to us, which makes this such an important issue, is if you go around and talk to community college leaders around the state, and you ask them, like, what are some of the programs you're doing, and what are some of the needs you have? And what they'll tell you is, you know, we've got some pretty cool programs. And we can give people education, and they can turn around that and skills into high wages in their same community or a different job in their same community. It's an easy program to deliver. And we're doing a pretty good job of working with the high schools and getting that feeder. We're doing okay with that. They said what the problem is, that dishwasher who's in the restaurant across the street, who we would love to bring over and put them in this skill so they can leave with a better opportunity for higher wage, we can't because they have childcare issues or transportation issues. And so early education also has another side of benefit. If that person in the workforce today whose kids are in an early education program, it frees them up also to go educate themselves, to go into one of those schools at LCTCS, elevate their opportunities, give them higher wage opportunities. So the ripple effects are obvious with early education, and it's the merit of all those things and more which make it obvious why this issue is the exception to the rule. There's no partisan issue here. Everyone in the Capitol who walks in here, if they're looking at the merit is clear. Early education is the name of the game, and anything we can do to invest in it and promote it and expand it is going to benefit all of our citizens, not just those starting schools, but all those that are depending on those students to be the future leaders of Louisiana in the years to come. So proud to be part of this group. Thank you all for your efforts, and look forward to working with you two for the years to come to get it done.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, I'd like to introduce Patty Riddlebarger, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility at Entergy, to share how access to early care and education impacts employers and employees. Patty?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to come here and share a little bit with you about Entergy's experiences and what we have found about the impact of early childhood education and care on working parents. You know, Entergy funded a study that was done by the Louisiana Policy Institute that showed how significant that impact is. We know that parents turn down jobs, they get laid off, or they turn down opportunities for advancement and promotion because they don't have adequate child care. That was documented by the study. And we know that at Entergy it was brought home to us, particularly after Hurricane Katrina, when a number of our employees who had relocated to other states and other cities told us that they couldn't come back to New Orleans because there was no one to care for their children. At that time, I want to say there were some child care centers that had waiting lists of 1,000 children. And that's a situation that's untenable. If parents do not have care for their children, they cannot work. It's that simple. And what that means for Entergy as an employer is that we lost good people, good employees to other states. What it means for parents, children, and the economy of Louisiana is lost opportunities. Parents are not able to provide for their families the way that they would like to provide. Children are robbed of the opportunity to achieve their full potential. And the economy of the state is diminished when companies choose to look elsewhere when they're looking to expand or grow. The availability of a skilled and ready workforce is critical for corporations that are looking to relocate or expand. Part of the ability to attract that workforce has to do with services and resources available to families, such as good quality schools and high quality early care and education. This is why Entergy chooses to invest in early childhood education, as well as to focus advocacy on supporting efforts such as the Ready Louisiana Coalition to help increase public funding and the impact of public policy, because philanthropy can do a lot, and Entergy is committed to philanthropy, but philanthropy cannot do it all. There has to be state, federal, and local funding to make that happen. So working with partners such as Ready Louisiana, Entergy has helped to generate over $477 million in additional federal, state, and local funding for high-quality early care and education over the past 20 years. Thank you. Thank you. And we know that we need to continue because we are not where we want to be. We do it because we know that the return on the investment is significant in those early years. Yet as a state, I've learned that we spend less than 0.5% of our general budget on education in early years. Why? I don't understand that. Louisiana consistently ranks near the bottom of the U.S. for household income, and studies actually funded by Entergy have shown that more than 60% of that gap can be attributed to Louisiana's lower levels of education. We know that investments in early childhood can move the needle. The time to close the gap is now, for parents, for children, and for our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Libby Sonnier, Executive Director of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children, to discuss the importance of quality in early care and education.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you to you all for joining us in support of our youngest learners today. As an independent source of data, research, and pertinent information for policymakers, we at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children really work tirelessly to shed light on the state of early care and education in our state. The research is clear, which has been stated earlier. Children benefit academically and socially from quality, reliable early care and education. We know that 90% of brain development happens prior to age 4. It is imperative that we invest in high-quality early care and education experiences for our youngest children so that they are better prepared for school and life and be successful. The Louisiana Department of Education uses the CLASS system, which is a nationally recognized tool to measure how well our early childhood programs are supporting our youngest learners. We are 8th in the country. 8th in the country in a good way, y'all, because we are committed to quality early care and education in our state. High-quality early childhood programs have lower teacher ratios, use evidence-based curriculums that have activities that promote that kindergarten readiness that has been mentioned, which help them learn and develop. We must also support access to programs that both employ qualified and knowledgeable teachers, as well as promote their continuing education. Prior to the pandemic, we already had an issue with serious lack of funding and access to high-quality early care and education programs. The COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated this and caused quality centers throughout the state to struggle to remain open or have really a hard time to not shut their doors. Quality early care and education can make the difference to our children, our education system, our economy, and our future. That's why we need to create a robust source of ongoing funding for early care and education by committing all revenues from sports betting, both in person and online, to the Louisiana Early Education Fund. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Tessa Holloway, Director of Kids Carousel Academy.
Thank you so much, Libby, for inviting me here. And I did get talking points, but after listening to a lot of everybody speaking, I'm so grateful that so many people are advocating for us behind the doors that we don't see that's actually happening as a provider. But I do want to tell you guys a little bit of my story. I am the person that was on CCAP. Both of my children were on child care assistance when I was going to college. And so now I am an employer of over 160 people. I have over 1,000 kids in my centers across the state. And thank you. And over 2,000 parents who, without the help of you guys, would not be able to go to work. So just little me, I impact 3,000 lives, and I'm only one provider. So this is really, really important that we do have an annual investment in child care that we can count on. You know, it's one thing when COVID hit, I'm so grateful for all the help that we got. I was one in 6 of the facilities that were able to get the respite care contract and keep a lot of the families that were essential employees, a lot of the doctors and nurses at the hospital and different things. And so that helped, but we could do better by having money allocated to us for the providers and for the children and for the families, because once that money kind of lowered, the families pulled their children because they couldn't afford it. And COVID, just like Libby said, it just made everything come to light more. But as I was speaking to someone earlier in here, there is no economy without childcare. It's not that it hurts the economy. There is no economy without childcare. So I think that the legislature, if this bill passes and they can promise to put funding towards childcare, it will definitely help the entire state. It would put us ahead, and we could actually keep up instead of trying to always catch up, because that's what Louisiana has been doing. And again, I'm so grateful for everybody putting in all this work, and the impact on the families has been substantial. Again, it was already a lot at the beginning, but it's been really hard, and I just want to tell y'all I appreciate it. And coming from a provider's perspective of everything, this is really great, and we need to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa, for sharing your experiences and your perspective with us today. Our last 2 speakers will highlight the work communities across the state are doing to invest in early child education. First, we will hear from Dr. Cerintha Strickland, Director of the Jefferson Ready Start Network. Then, Christy Gustafsson, Executive Director of the Community Foundation of North Louisiana. Our third speaker, New Orleans City Council member Helena Romero, was unfortunately unable to join us today, but we would like to recognize New Orleans for their leadership on investing in early childhood education. Most recently, the city committed $1.5 million to provide free, high-quality childhood education to low-income families with young children in Orleans Parish. Dr. Strickland?
Thank you, Denise, and thank you to the Ready Louisiana Coalition for the invitation to speak with you today. In Jefferson Parish, there are 28,000 children from birth through 4 years of age. Of those, 21,000 live in families who are economically disadvantaged. You couldn't even fit all of those children in the Smoothie King Center during a Pelicans game when they're at full capacity. So picture that for just a moment and consider in all those children, only 4,000 of them in Jefferson right now are in publicly funded early care and education services. We have a clear and critical need to increase access to high-quality early care and education in Jefferson and throughout this state. The Jefferson Ready Start Network is a coalition of thought partners working collaboratively to tackle this tremendous task. We are a group of people led by the Jefferson Parish School System, and this coalition involves business and industry leaders, advocates, and local policy makers, working together to ensure that children in Jefferson have that high-quality opportunity that prepares them for kindergarten, as all of the speakers, including the governor, has spoken about today. We have a bold local vision, a vision where all children in Jefferson have equitable access to quality. Our fundraising efforts, our advocacy efforts are just starting to build. We have a long way to go, but we are working to build that culture of quality that's so important to ensure that children are ready. Now, I wish I was here to say that in Jefferson, that the council committed, what was it, Denise, 1.5 million? Well, we're not quite there, but I am thrilled to say that under the leadership of Council Chair Scott Walker, the Jefferson Parish Council has made an initial investment starting at $225,000 for Jefferson Ready Start programs. That qualifies Jefferson for that state match, those matching dollars through the Louisiana Early Education Trust Fund. That creates the opportunity to double the number of infants and toddlers in Jefferson who can access those quality services starting in August, right? We need our legislators to step up. We need them to allocate sufficient dollars to reward the local investment, to reward the local effort, but most importantly, to double the difference for young children across our state. So this is not just an initiative for the big parishes, right? This is an opportunity for all children birth through 5 across our state, including those in smaller and more rural parishes. Ensuring there is continued and ongoing sustainable funding for early care and education is critical to ensure that young children have those quality opportunities, and not just to be ready by kindergarten or reading at 3rd grade, but to have that foundation for lifelong success. It is now my pleasure to introduce Christy Gustafsson, close, Chief Executive Officer of the Community Foundation of North Louisiana.
Thank you. So happy to be here from North Louisiana. So I won the parent lottery relative to kindergarten readiness. My dad was the Dean of Education of LSU Shreveport, and my mother was a lifetime kindergarten teacher in low-income schools. I was going to be kindergarten ready, whether I wanted to be or not. So my job at the Community Foundation now is to ensure that we spend philanthropic dollars the most effective and efficient way possible. And in 2019, 60% of the children in Caddo Parish were not ready for kindergarten. And I can't help by way of background to think this is just not fair for those children. So at the Community Foundation, I thought, what can we do? So we put on an early childhood summit in the fall consisting of 60 business and other leaders from the community to talk about this issue. And what came out of that was a citywide and parish-wide commitment to early childhood education. And so from the Community Foundation perspective, I thought, well, what can I do in my role in philanthropy to help this out? And I'll tell you what, the matching dollars that incentivize local communities to raise money are imperative to what we have done. So in January of this year, we issued a challenge and we said, hey, Caddo Parish, if you guys raise $900,000, and I'm not talking about the parish or the city, I'm talking about private donors. If you guys raise $900,000, Community Foundation will put in the last $100,000 to go get another $1 million from the state. And I'm happy to say, as I stand here since January, we've done it. We could not have done that without the match. I mean, you can imagine going to a private business owner and saying, I need $100,000 so I can send some kids to preschool. But guess what? Your 100,000 is going to turn into 200,000. That is a really easy philanthropic sell. I need everybody's help to keep that up, right? So what we've done is put that money together. We have a tremendous steering committee that is going to help us spend those dollars to take the at least 200 families that we know existed in 2019 on the CCAP wait list and get those kids into type 3 centers, 100% scholarship. Community Foundation keeps $0. We also hired a data analyst on our own dime to make sure that we were using these dollars the most efficient and effective way possible. Philanthropy is just a small piece of how this happens, but in order to make change, real change, legislative change, both statewide and in the community, you have to have community buy-in. And having all these private donors buy into the fact that our children have to go to early child care centers, type 3 centers to get ready for kindergarten is the way to go. And, you know, from the business perspective, we have 55 small business owners that this is going to affect because more children will be added to their centers. And so, you know, it is my responsibility at the Community Foundation to make sure that we not only raise the quantity of the seats, but the quality. And we're here to help hold the hand of the owners of the type 3 centers in any way that we can do so philanthropically. So big thanks to Mayor Adrian Perkins, who's been a big supporter of this, Superintendent Dr. Lamar Gorey, and also the Caddo Parish Ready Start Network, because we could not do this without them. So let's make sure that we continue to remove the barriers that kids in poverty have to educational success so they can have the same experience that I had because I was born in a neighborhood across town. Where you're born should not dictate your lifelong success. So thank you.
So I want to thank Tessa, Dr. Strickland, and Christy for all that you are doing to support children and families in your communities. Before we close today, I'd like to thank all of our speakers, of course, the governor. I didn't want to forget any of our speakers' names, Charmaine, so I'm going to read through my list. And so I want to thank Dr. Cade, Brumley. I want to thank the governor. I want to thank Stephen. I want to thank Patty, my partner in crime with Women United. Also want to thank Libby, but especially our providers. We know it has been tough. We know it's been a hard journey. I have to tell you also, as a first-generation college student, 4th of 6, if it wasn't for child care providers down in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans, my mother and father wouldn't be able to work, and I would not be standing before you today. So I just want to thank you, thank you, thank you. It is critical that we continue to find ways to invest in high-quality early care and education in Louisiana. Louisiana's need for early care and education remains tremendous. Before COVID-19, there were an estimated 173,000 at-risk children. And I hate that term, at risk. Our communities make our children at risk. They are not at-risk children. Birth to age 3 in Louisiana, and less than 15% of them could access a publicly funded early childhood program. A recent poll conducted by the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children found that more than 75% of likely voters support taxes on sports betting to fund early care and education. The poll also found bipartisan support among Republicans, Independents, and Democrats to use sports betting revenues to fund early care and education rather than the state general fund. Right now, Louisiana spends less than half of 1% on early care and education. This year, we have the opportunity to change this, and I hope that we do. Legislators, please listen to what was presented here today. Listen to families, listen to businesses, listen to the voters. We urge you to commit the revenues from sports betting to early care and education. Our children truly are our best bet. When children win, Louisiana wins. Thank you.